What's up, guys? It's Jordan from Blackwater, Japan, and it's a beautiful Saturday, the day before Mother's Day in 2025. And what you see in front of me, or I guess next to me, is a 2000 Lexus LS400 UCF20 facelift. Today, we have a good friend who dropped this guy off to us for some maintenance. And the maintenance that we're going to be performing today is a valve cover gasket, spark plugs, spark plug tube seals, oil change, and we're going to inspect the car and see if we find anything else that may need done in the near future. But for now, I'm going to open the hood and I'm going to show you the parts that we got, and then we'll start on the job. So these are the parts that we're going to be using today. We have our two valve cover gaskets because it's a V8. We have our 8 spark plug tube seals, 8 spark plugs, OEM Toyota, D3 Toyota oil filter. We also have the crush washers for the bolts for the valve covers. And then down below, we have our Mobile One full synthetic 5W30 oil and some brake clean. Let's check out this hood real quick. So here it is, the crusty, rusty 1UZ FE VVTi. This guy has been leaking, as you can see, for some bit. There is just crust and dirt everywhere, all the way back to the back of the engine on both sides. And it's got to the point where the oil is leaking so bad, specifically on this passenger bank, that it drips onto the heat shield down below. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that down there? Yeah, see this right here? It's hard to see, but it drips down on the heat shield and starts to smoke, which is pretty common when these valve covers go bad. We're going to dig into this now. The first thing I'm going to do is just put the car up in the air and drain the oil. Now, you don't have to drain the oil if you're doing just the valve cover gaskets, because when the car sits, all the oil drops into the pan. But since we're going to be doing an oil change anyways, I figured I would just do the bottom stuff first, and then we'll move our way back to the top. So I'm just down here doing a quick oil change. I don't think you guys really need to know how to do an oil change. But what I can recommend is using Toyota filters and Toyota filters only. OEM is the best for anything. You can get those at Walmart or probably any local parts store. Okay, so I got the oil drained. I made sure everything was good down there. Obviously, I'm not going to fill up the oil yet because I still need a lot of work to do up top. So right now I'm going to start by just unplugging this MAF and taking off this whole intake and kind of seeing what I need to do to get this side valve cover off. Alright, so once you got all those vacuum hoses disconnected, the MAF disconnected, and whatever this little plug guy is back there disconnected, and any other vacuum lines you see connected to this air filter, I recommend getting some of these. These are nice. You can get them at like Harbor Freight or whatever. These are just like little hose clamp pliers. I just used it on this guy, shook it back and forth, and then pulled it off, and it helped me get this hose off real nice and easy. So now, I believe that's all the bolts for that. Oh, let's see, we have this connector for the MAF. Okay, and there's the fucking honking ass snorkel tube looking intake pipe. Like the other side, brother. Dude, this thing is massive.
Yeah, it's huge.
Okay, so now that that's off, we can look over here. It looks like all these bolts are pretty accessible. I'm probably going to pull out my shop vac before removing the actual valve cover, so none of this debris that did come off falls directly into the engine. You don't want that to happen. But for now, I'm going to start by removing these plugs for the ignition coils, or coil packs, whatever you call them, and then I'll take them out with these 10 mils, set them to the side, and then I'll start by doing a quick vacuum and then just start taking out all the bolts, like right here and stuff, and then down below for the valve cover. All right, so there was a video I watched on how to do this job, and the guy was too scared to unplug the connectors for the coil packs. he just didn't want this to break. It's okay if it does break. You just need to push it in all the way. It's still gonna make a connection. Yes, they're brittle plastic, but if you can get a 90-degree pick in there, I'll show you right here. There's this tab, and you can kind of work your way under and pry it up, and then this guy will slide right off. Let's try it with this one. Hopefully this one doesn't break. You can see this is kind of moving when I do that. So I'm just kind of getting under there, and then I'm just gonna wiggle it off like that. I'm left-handed, but I'll try to show you guys this one a little better. Like that. So nice and easy, nothing hard. This might help as well if we disconnect this long guy here. This is just going to be up and out of the way now, not over the valve cover, just to get anything that's hanging over the valve cover kind of out of the way. So with that being said, we're going to continue by removing these guys. Wow, look at that corrosion and crust. These are probably original. I mean, they do have Toyota part numbers on them. So I actually went ahead and disconnected every electrical component right here, all the clips for the harness, so I have a lot of slack, except for the injectors. I left the injectors plugged in. I didn't mention that there is 3 10 mils holding in this harness. There's one back here in this corner, there's one here, and one here. And now I have a lot more play. So I unplugged the oil control valve, and whatever, I think there's some sort of coolant sensor back there that I unplugged, and all this stuff. So now, and then I vacuumed it all up as best as I could. So now this valve cover is basically ready to come off as soon as I undo all those bolts, and then I'll just have to wiggle it out. So I'm gonna get the other side ready like I have this side, so I can kind of just do them at the same time. Looks like I'm gonna have some vacuum hoses like the other side. These guys here need to come out of the way. Same thing, these ignition coils, coil packs need to be unplugged and move out of the way. So I will have to take this PCV valve off. Looks pretty crusty to me, but we'll see when it comes off. So I'm gonna start doing that on this side, same thing I did on the other side. All right, real quick, I just want to go over everything I took off. I took off the fuse cover. I took off 2 vacuum lines that go down to here, that go up to this and over here. And then obviously I took off all the ignition coils, and I kind of wrapped their plugs, the connectors up here. And then I also took off the PCV valve and this hose here that goes over the PCV valve to here. So that's everything pretty much for this side. On this side, this is probably extra. You probably don't have to do this, but I took this power steering reservoir off and kind of just wiggle it out of the way. Just hoping to have more access to the bolt down here. And then I disconnected the harness from its little connector down there. Disconnected all the harness bolts up here. Obviously took this vacuum hose off as well, and everything that was connected to the intakes. I'm sorry this probably isn't a perfect how-to video, but I want to just say that this job isn't too hard as long as you're patient and, you know, are pretty good with your hands. It's something that you can easily do yourself at home with the right tools. I do recommend getting a wobble 10 mil because that's going to come in handy when I'm going down here. If you can't get wobble sockets, then at least a wobble attachment, like a 3/8 wobble attachment that can attach to any 10 mil, and that would be solid. So I'm going to try to use this 1/4 inch electric impact with a wobble socket and see if this can help me too get some of these down here. There we go. Now that's a dirty freaking engine. And we are gonna do the half mins because we ain't no bitch. Just like that. So I'm gonna have Shelby do the cleaning because she is a woman and that's what they do. I'm just kidding. But she's good at it and I'm not. And so I'm gonna have her do that. And I'm gonna go show you guys me doing the other side. valve cover removal. There we go. Oh my God. Well, I don't know if you saw that, but while I was taking this stuff off, my phone fell on the floor and broke my tripod. So that kind of sucks, but whatever. It was a cheapy tripod. So got the valve covers off. This one's really a pain with this dipstick here. It like tries to bend it and break it. And I pulled the trans dipstick out and that seemed to help a bit. It's pretty inevitable to get dirt inside the engine, so I did a good vacuum on that. And I pulled the half moons out. And then I'm going to do the spark plugs real quick while Shelby still cleans the valve cover. She already did one of them. Looks pretty good. If you're doing the valve cover, don't be scared to do these half moons. They're really not bad. All it is you grab it with some pliers, carefully of course, pull it out, clean off all the old fippage, put new fippage on the little groove in the half moon. I'll show you that when I go to do that. And then you'll need a little fippage up here in that corner and down in that corner. I just pulled out all the plugs and I just wanted to show you guys this real quick. These look gnarly, real nasty, lots of rust and corrosion. This car is from the coast, the Oregon coast, so there is going to be a little bit of rust there, but I know these aren't the original plugs because they're in GK, so they have been changed at some point. But this is what it's supposed to look like. Crazy. And then I just have like a magnetic spark plug socket tool that's like on a wobble, and then some extensions, and it was really easy to get all these out. And now I'm gonna put them back in and then continue cleaning. All right guys, so real quickly I'm going to show you how to do a spark plug tube seal. I'm just going to show you how to do one, and I'm just going to rush through the rest because we're running out of daylight. But I already got this one done. So basically you're going to want to flip the valve cover over like I have it here, and you're going to look for these 4 little tabs on the baffle. And you're going to take something like, what I was using was this to just get them started. You'll see I'll have to pry under just to get them started, like just kind of get them off of that old seal, sort of like that. And then I'll take my needle nose and work it and bend it up, all 4 of them. Okay, once you have them all kind of bent up like that, you're gonna flip this guy back over, and then I was using this guy on the other ones, so I was kind of trying to get underneath. You're trying to basically get on this part of the seal. You don't want to go like super crazy with the hammer because you don't want to scratch the metal of the seal very much, because then you'll have a leak. But okay, now I hear that it's getting close to the edge, so I'm just going to try to work it down. And then a lot of the time the seals would just fall apart, but that one I got pretty lucky. Okay, and then you'll have it flip back over like this. This is the old seal. This one didn't fall apart. I'm going to take a rag. I'm going to wipe this out because that is disgusting. And then you'll take the spark plug tube seal and make sure you have it on the right way. It goes like this. And you'll kind of just push it in there. And then I like to take a big socket. This is a 29 mil, and it covers pretty well. You hear it, see it hit the metal, you can hear it. Okay, that looks pretty solid. And then don't forget to bend these tabs back down. I'll use my needle nose and kind of force them down just a hair. So like that. that is how you do a spark plug tube seal. So I'm gonna knock out the rest. I already got one side done. I'm gonna do the rest, and then I'll show you guys how I put on the valve cover gasket. All right, so Shelby's getting the valve cover gasket ready. These are not universal. Each one has a certain side. So she's gonna start putting that guy in there. And then I did find out that all the bolts are the same length, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. And we did put the new little washers on. And we got all the spark plug tube seals in as well. So she's fitting the valve cover gasket to the first one.
Okay.
Now I would flip it over and press it on. Yeah, press it down. Nice and firm. All like pressure all over. You can also take the rubber mallet and just kind of tap it along so it stays in place. Yep, perfect. Yeah, looks good. Okay, and that's pretty much it for fitting the valve cover, so the gasket itself. Now we're just gonna do the same thing to that one. All right, so everything's cleaned up. This passenger side valve cover is about to go on. So I got some Toyota Fippage or seal packing, whatever you call it. And I got my half moons and they're all clean. And I am just going to apply some Fippage. Just like so. Same to this one. Just like so. And I'll take this guy and carefully set him in his spot. And they will kind of be free to move like up and down until you put the valve cover on. Push that in there. And then I'm going to Fippage these two spots up here. All right, something like that. And I put a bungee cord to the harness so it can kind of pull the harness up and out of the way. And just be careful to not roll the seal. Just like that. All right, now I'm just gonna get my bolts all started by hand, if I can reach all of them. So I always do a crisscross pattern, probably starting from the bottom since that's the place that leaks the most. So I'm using my 1/4" ratchet, gonna do a couple turns. I'm gonna go up here. A 1/4" ratchet's always good because you're not gonna over tighten with the 1/4", and you can kind of feel when it gets snug. It's really easy to snap these bolts. I've seen it done a million times. All right, so I just went over it in a crisscross pattern. I'm gonna go over it one more time, and then we're gonna start on the other side. All right, so now we're on the driver's side. I moved the dipsticks out of the way just so I could get more room, because I did notice that the valve cover was hanging up on the dipsticks when I was trying to get it out. So same thing, just gonna put some Fippage on my half moons. Okay. They just going like that. Pretty much just like that. And then I gotta Fippage those spots again. Now this side, putting the valve cover gasket on is definitely gonna be harder. There's no doubt about it. Hopefully that's good. Now wish me luck. Double check your gasket. Looks good. And I'm gonna go like this down here. This side really sucked. And we had to use a little bit of super glue to just dab on the gasket to make it stay on the valve cover. Every time we got it over the top of the motor, it would fall off, and then it started falling off anytime we just put it on at all. I ain't even gonna lie to y'all, that side was a bitch. So like I said earlier, we put just a tiny dab of super glue in little tiny spots that the valve cover gasket kept coming up on. And I tried RTV at first, but it wouldn't stick. And then I tried Vaseline because I saw that on a YouTube video, and it didn't stick. It kind of just lubed it up more to fall out. So I did a little bit of the super glue, just a very tiny amount in the two spots that it was coming up. And then I let it sit for just a second and then put it on. So we got the valve covers on. Everything should be good. Pray to the car gods that there's no leaks at all. And now we're just gonna button everything up. I'm gonna throw the ignition coils back in, the intake and all the hoses and everything. I'm gonna do that real quick, and then we'll top it off with the oil, and I'll let you guys know how everything goes. Feels good to crack that freaking oil cap seal after you just did a big job. Well, big job. Now let's just hope it does not leak. Ooh, look at that liquid gold. Zoom in on that. Alright guys, so we're doing our first start right now. We had no codes. The VSC light came on, but I think that's because you unplugged some stuff over here, and then it went right off after the like 30 seconds of it being on. And then I revved the car a couple times. I don't have any oil leaks or anything like that. And it's still burning off the old oil that's on there. I'm gonna run to the store, get some brake clean, and spray it up just to make sure it's clean for the customer. But I think we did a pretty good job. I think everything's good. One recommendation is, I've never done this before with valve cover gaskets, but we did use some super glue, like just tiny little dots of it to hold it in place on the valve cover, because it kept moving no matter what we did. On the passenger bank, it didn't do it as much, but on the driver bank, it just, every time we flipped it over, it just fell right off. So if that happens to you, you can try that. But I'm gonna get the car on the ground, and then we're gonna go drive it to the customer and make sure it's all good.